everybody. I am back. Good to be back. And I do want to switch gears, and I do want to talk a little bit about college hoops, because college hoops was rocking on Tuesday night, baby. Final Tuesday of the regular season. A couple really big games, right? Obviously, the big one that most of you probably saw the ending to, Wisconsin-Purdue for a Big Ten regular season title. A kid named Chucky Hepburn. What a great name, by the way. I wish my name was Chucky Hepburn. 3-bank game, Wisconsin Big Ten title. We'll talk about them in a minute. But I do want to start somewhere else, and I actually want to start on the West Coast at a game that I was at. USC hosted Arizona, top 25 matchup. By the way, if you're wondering why this episode dropped so late on Wednesday here, forgive me. I was at the arena till about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Got home about 11 Pacific, 2 a.m. Eastern. So forgive me. But I do want to talk about the Arizona-USC game, because what I'll say is this. I know many of you didn't make it till the end. I almost did it myself because it was an absolute bloodbath. Arizona 51 points in the first half, 91 points in the game. And let me tell you this, that was about as good as any performance offensively that I have seen all season long. Now, I know the Kentucky-Tennessee game when Kentucky shot like 78% from the field for the entire game. That one's in the short conversation. But Arizona was just as good, just as efficient. They were unbelievable on Tuesday night, so let's talk about it a little bit. Because what I'll say is that USC team that they beat on Tuesday night, that they embarrassed on Tuesday night, I didn't even mention final score 91-71, that USC team is legitimately good. First of all, Andy Enfield has quietly turned this into a great program. Maybe at some point, depending on what happens with the Maryland search, whatever, we'll talk a little bit about Andy Enfield, because I still don't think that people realize how good this program is under his watch. But Andy Enfield and USC, check out this stat. Over the last 3 seasons, dating back to the 2019-2020 season, the season that was canceled by COVID, USC has the 3rd most wins of any Power 5 program over that stretch. The only schools that have more wins over that stretch, Baylor, who obviously won a national title last year, Kansas, and then it's USC. Not Villanova, not Kentucky, who struggled last year, not Duke, who struggled last year, not North Carolina, not Wisconsin, not Tennessee. It is USC. So USC is a real program coming off an Elite Eight, playing really well, 25-4 coming into Wednesday and Tuesday night. And Arizona just embarrassed them. If you want an idea of how good Arizona was on Tuesday night, just know this. USC on the season was allowing per game 64 points per game. They came into the game number 6 in the country in defensive field goal percentage, allowing about 38% shooting from the field. Arizona had 51 points at the half. So USC was allowing 64 per game. USC was allowing 64 per game. Arizona had 51 at the half, and Arizona was shooting 55% from the field at the half. That's insane. On top of that, USC had given up more than 75 points all season long. Arizona scores 91, and what was crazy was basically after halftime, Arizona was just trying to bleed the clock. They weren't even, I don't want to say they weren't trying, but they just took their foot off the gas. They were just trying to win that game. And so Arizona puts up an incredible performance. Arizona plays brilliantly. I would argue maybe the best half of offensive basketball all year. Again, I know that Kentucky-Tennessee game would be in the short conversation as well. I'm sure there's some other ones. But what I would also tell you coming out of this game is it confirmed a thought that I had about Arizona, okay? Now, if you listen to this show over the last couple weeks, I've talked a lot about title contenders. A few weeks ago, I think I did, the 6 teams that I believe can win it all? Arizona, Kentucky, Duke, Auburn, and Gonzaga. Maybe it was 5. I believe it was the 5 teams that I believe can win it all. Then last week, I also did the, what did I do? I did the, on Monday's show, I did the top 6 teams all lost, and I broke it down team by team. Well, I would say this. Even after I did the top 5 teams that can win it all and the top 6 teams losing, what does it mean? What I would tell you is this. Over the weekend, I had a thought, and I was afraid to share it, and I wouldn't put it out on social media. I'll share it here on the podcast. Many of you may disagree. But what I would say is this. I truly believe that there are 2 teams that when they are operating at the absolute highest level, when they are playing their absolute best, and when they are fully healthy, I think there are 2 teams that are significantly better than everybody else. 1 is the Arizona Wildcats. 2 is the Kentucky Wildcats as well. And I actually thought about this during the Kentucky-Arkansas game where Kentucky basically had two guards that were both banged up, barely playing. Ty Washington's barely on the court. And I sat there and said, wait a second now. If Kentucky can go into Bud Walton Arena and play this well with these guys at less than 100%, when they are at 100%, that team is scary, and it's the same with Arizona. And by the way, it's no disrespect to anybody else. I think Gonzaga's really good. I know that there's a lot of people that listen to this show or that don't listen to this show regularly that'll probably say, Torres, you just hate Gonzaga. No, I'm actually probably one of the biggest Gonzaga supporters in the world. I think Gonzaga, not in the world, but in the media. I think Gonzaga's really good. I think they're a great program. I think at some point they're going to break through, and I do believe this could be the year, right? Like I'm not saying that Arizona and Kentucky are the only teams that can win it all, but what I am saying is when they're at their absolute best, I don't believe that anybody is better. I don't even believe that anybody's close, because what I would say about those two teams is this, is that those two teams, when they are operating at their absolute highest levels, they really have no weakness, right? You look at some of the other teams. Purdue, we talked about their defense. Auburn, their guards are struggling. Kansas is a mess right now. They just lost to TCU on Tuesday night, and I know TCU is a tournament team, but that's not a game that Kansas should lose. And oh, by the way, even Gonzaga, I like Gonzaga, but I don't know that their guards are elite, especially relative to some of the other backcourts that they'll face over the course of the tournament. So when I look at the scope of college basketball, what I would say is I do believe there are two teams that are head and shoulders above everybody else when they are fully healthy, and it is Arizona and Kentucky. I've obviously talked about Kentucky. I think the biggest thing with Kentucky at this point, they just got to get fully healthy, right? They just got to get fully healthy. They had everybody available against Ole Miss on Tuesday night, and they blew the doors off the building. They win 83-72. I know it got close at certain points in the second half, but you never felt like Kentucky wasn't winning that game as they win convincingly. Oscar Tshiebwe, 18 points in that one. But I've talked a lot about Kentucky, and I've actually talked a lot about Arizona too, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But when I look at those two teams, what I see is teams that are complete. They can score a lot. They can get stops on defense. They can defend. They can shoot the three. They can play fast. They can play slow. And that's the big thing, right? We had Sean Miller on this podcast about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and one of the things Sean Miller said was, look, when it gets to the NCAA tournament, you have to be able to win multiple different ways. I've talked about it. I've shared this story on the podcast before. But I remember the year that Virginia lost as a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament to UMBC. And I had somebody very prominent call me up the next day and say they will never win a national championship until they get that offense clicking at a higher level, because you can't expect to win tournament games 62-60. You can't win 6 straight tournament games. There's going to be a game where you get drawn into a game where you have to score in the 80s, and Virginia just can't win that way. Now, the next year, their offense got much more efficient. DeAndre Hunter got healthy. They win a national championship, but it was because their offense was so much better the following year. But I bring it up because what I see from Kentucky and Arizona, and I see it from other teams too, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Kentucky and Arizona are the only two teams that can win it, but what I am saying is, again, no real weaknesses, even Arizona. What stands out to me is a couple things. One, their size is incredible. 7'1" Christian Coloco, 7'1" Umar Ballo, 6'10" Azulis Tubelis. Their guards are big, all that good stuff. But the other thing with Arizona, and I've said it a few times, so I don't mean to belabor the point, but with Arizona, I think it's worth noting. They play real defense, right? Number 2 in the country in field goal percentage defense. They play real defense, and so when I look at them, they and Kentucky, I do believe, are the teams to beat going into this tournament. Again, as time goes on, as we get more information, as Purdue starts to struggle, we're going to talk about them, as Kansas starts to struggle, as Auburn doesn't seem to be itself, the more I look at this field, the more I think that when they're operating at the highest level, Arizona and Kentucky are the two best teams. But here's the fun part. We get to find out in 2 weeks when that bracket comes out who is actually number 1.